All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Casual Friday, Talking Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am Patrick Moran. Again, Casual Friday. That means, as always, I'm joined by my good friend, co-host of the Maintenance Day podcast, also author of the Noted Hockey Substack, my buddy Joe Yerdon. What's up, dude, man? How you doing?
Doing good. It's a nice day. It's good to be back. Good to be doing this. You know,
it's my birthday.
Oh,
I was
man.
trying to figure.
Happy
I was
birthday,
trying to figure,
man!
You know, I was trying to figure out a way of subtly working my birthday in here so I can
just be blunt.
Shout out myself. And then I'm like, there is no subtle ways. I'm just gonna come on and say it. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you wish me a happy birthday because I deserve it.
That's right. He does. Look at all the stuff he's doing, man. Those guy a party, for crying out loud. You see him out in the bars. Get him a beer. Just get him some wings.
Yeah,
make them good wings though. Just
good. Well, there's not a lot of bad wings in Buffalo. Now, if this was Florida, it would be few and far between. But Buffalo's not bad. And by the way, in all seriousness, so it is Friday. You're listening to this. I did also want to shout out my girl, Chrissy Kimmick. She's the president of the Bills Mafia Babes. It's her birthday on Thursday as we're taping this. I love that girl, man. She's really cool. She does a lot of cool things. Plus, I've become really good friends with her over the last couple of years. So happy birthday to her as well. Funny story, and Joe pointed this out. Thank God he pointed this out. And we talked a little bit before we started taping. So if you listen to the show regularly on Fridays, you already know that our favorite thing to do is near the end, we always do a starting five draft. We do a pop culture topic and we draft a roster of 5 guys or girls or whatever the topic may be for that week. Anyway, Doctor Strange is coming out this week. And I also recently, if you follow me on Twitter, you know this because I have been like posting and tweeting like crazy, fucking annoying people with my reviews. But I watched all 27 MCU films, which I had never done before. I've seen a handful of them before. And other ones I watched, but like I didn't pay attention. I had no context of what was going on. It was just confusing. I guess I just like some of the action scenes, whatever. But I went back and I actually watched all of them over the last, not even a month. I started on April 12th and I got done a couple days ago.
I can't believe it. That's so many movies.
It is.
Oh my God.
Well, not just movies. So I watched all 27 with a couple days to spare. And now I'm addicted to this shit. I'm like, put this into my veins. Now, I did watch WandaVision last year. I kind of sort of knew what was going on. But I already watched, Loki. Loki was a 6 episode one on Disney Plus that I just watched last couple of days. It's kind of, And then there's a What If series, which I've actually found really fascinating. I didn't want to watch it, but now I'm kind of in the middle of it.
Oh, that's the animated series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I Bruce Nolan, shout out to him, man. He told me, he goes, you got to watch this. He goes, it might have something to do with Doctor Strange, like with the movie that's coming out, and just you need to watch it anyway. So I did, and it's actually been really fascinating. But anyway, every week we kind of, we talk. Usually I'm somewhere Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday, and I'm like, all right, let's do this week for our draft. And I came at you with MCU characters. So I sit there and, I made a list of my 10. I like to make a list of 10 in case, you're going to take some of the ones that I like as well. And then just an hour or so before we started taping, Joe's like, we already did these? Like, what? I didn't remember. I had to go back and look. So we've done 41 of these drafts. So this will be 42. And I was like, lo and behold, we did do an MCU characters draft. It was one of those that you whip my ass in.
I mean, listen, if we broke it down by those, that's getting a little wild.
I know, but anyway, so all right, so we did characters. It is my birthday. I'm gonna invoke that, and also Doctor Strange coming out this week. We're gonna do MCU movies, and this is literally gonna be on the fly because we just. Again, we usually decide a day or two before, so we got some time to kind of think on it. This is literally going to be on the fly.
Listen, you're the king of wings in the city. Wing it. We're going to wing it for this. And you've also basically said, "Hey, Joe, just tank this one for my birthday, please." Just
no, don't take it for my birthday.
Just go 14, 15 Sabres and just dump this on purpose. Just give up 100 shots a game and just let it go.
Don't take it, but
I'm taking Eternals first. How about I do that?
Go ahead. That's dead last. I'll give you a spoiler alert.
That movie stunk, man.
I will not be drafting Eternals. I did 27 movies. I power rank literally everything I ever watched. So that was dead last. So I promise you,
horrible.
I will not be taking Eternals. And we'll get there, like I said, a little bit later in the show. Let's start with the Bills. Now, Kyler Elam was drafted in the first round, and we taped really, really late last week. We taped last Thursday, right after the first round concluded. So we kind of, we both had our thoughts on that, but that was like literally minutes afterwards with a full week to reflect on it, just generally speaking. And again, I have to say this, unlike a lot of podcasts that are Buffalo related out there, and I love this. I think this is a good thing. Joe is not a Buffalo Bills fan. We've said it many times. Joe is a Buffalo Bills watcher. He lives here. He obviously pays close attention to the Bills and to the Sabres, but he's not necessarily a fan, which I like because I feel like I'm always going to get an objective opinion from you. Whereas I try, and I think I do better than most Bills podcasters out there, but from time to time I get a little bit homerish. I get a little bit of emotion in the things because
the guy wearing a Bills hat while saying this. Yeah.
As I'm literally taping this, wearing a Bills hat. I just wear it because it's black. You know what? I'm going to put a piece of tape over it.
Don't do that. That would look way worse.
Piece of white tape over it or
that'd
something
that'd be like you trading the Bills. Like, you're just like, no, I'm done with these guys. I'm taping over this.
If you're watching this on YouTube, Joe's referring to this black Buffalo Bills hat that I have on right now. But anyway, my point is this. I feel like I'm always going to get an honest evaluation from you, and there's not going to be any sentiments towards it when it comes to the Bills. All right, so Kyler Elam in the first, James Cook running back in the second, and then they went linebacker in the third with Terrell Bernard, and then a wide receiver in the fifth, Khalil Shakir, a guy who a lot of people like, who think that could be a good sleeper value pick for the Bills. We won't talk about the guys at the end of the draft because I frankly, at this time anyway, I really don't think that that's worth it. But look at this, the Bills draft. When you look at it as a whole right now, what did you think of it? In terms of what they needed, in terms of maybe the players themselves, value, things like that. What's your take now that we've had pretty much a full week to reflect on this draft?
Yeah, I like that they did go with a secondary guy the first. I like the pick of Elam. We talked about that last week. I think that was a good pick. It's a smart pick. It's a cover your ass thing for Trey White, and it's a guy you can develop in case things get a little bit wild. The James Cook pick is really interesting. I know people have been hung up on them drafting a running back for a couple of years now because the thought was that Singletary might not be the guy, and I just keep thinking back, and it's one of those things where I get conflicted because sometimes you get like a guy in the NHL season will have a hot last couple of weeks of the season, and you'll be like, oh wow, yeah, that's the guy to get. And then I think about it in the football terms, it's like, yeah, Singletary basically had exactly that happen. And so now I don't know exactly what to believe. Now, the final games of an NFL season are a bit different than the final games of an NHL season. Like, the Bills were going to the playoffs. The Bills had Super Bowl, hopes and, possibilities. So getting a running back and a running game going late in the season is like, uh-oh, that's a new weapon. Look out. But getting another running back, I mean, I don't know. Like, you drafted Zach Moss for this, 2 years ago, to be like that change of pace guy with Singletary. And then it's like, maybe he's not working out right. I don't know. And then, Singletary was like kind of disappointing in some ways. So you're just like, oh no, we don't have any running backs. And now you're adding another back to the backfield. And I'm just kind of like, listen, Cook had a great season with Georgia. Seems like he's a really good back. I don't know. I don't know if you have other pressing needs there. Like, I don't know, maybe add a receiver. I don't know. Like that's what I would have thought. But yeah, I'm a little hesitant on that pick. And then like third round Terrell Bernard out of Baylor. Listen, another linebacker can't hurt. Like, and you're looking at a future where maybe Edmonds isn't going to be around after this season. Like there's those things in play. So that's fine. Like that's totally okay. I love the Shakir pick. I think that's a super guy to pick up. I mean, I talked about receiver. Like that's the guy that I think would excite me. And that, listen, punt God, I don't care.
Punt God, I forgot about punt God.
Yeah, punt God. I don't care, man.
Punt God was not the first punter taken in this draft, by the way, and punt God was not the second punter taken in this draft either. He's still punt God, but he wasn't God enough to be the first or second punter.
Yeah, listen, he can hammer the ball like that. It's cool. He can kick it for distance. I'd almost rather have a guy that could kick it, maybe 10 yards fewer, but like 20 yards higher in the air, get that hang time to make sure, like, if you can place it and make sure the guy ain't going to return it, like, that's great. But like, if you're stuck, if they, say they get stuck back deep in their own end and they're just like, all right, this guy's going to get his field position. Well, geez, if he hits line drives, that guy's going to return it pretty quickly. Like you're not getting the field position you're thinking for. So we'll see. We'll see. Like, like Tim Graham pointed out, like if punt God can't hold, he ain't going to stick around. So,
right.
Like that's the whole thing. Like, I guess the guy can hold a little bit. He was doing trick holds and stuff in high school and college and stuff. So
yeah, the problem, the problem with him not holding in college is because he also was kicking field goals. Now, right. Like, do that in the NFL. Yeah, I agree pretty much with everything you said. And I wanted to wait. Like I did a podcast earlier this week, but I really didn't talk about the draft as a whole because I wanted to wait to talk with you today. I agree with a lot of what you said. We talked about Kaiir Elam last week. I will say this, and let me preface this too, by the way. I do have faith in this organization to make picks. I want to put that out there. That said, and Bruce Nolan tweeted something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but nobody's ever right 100% of the time. And when you're not right 100% of the time, that means you could be wrong. And we're entitled to our opinions. And there's nothing I hate more than when fans are out there, no matter what the pick is, in Bean we trust, in Bean we trust. All right, well, I do trust Brandon Bean, but that does not mean that I have to like every pick he makes. It does not mean that I could question if I would have done something differently, if I think this pick is wrong. And when it comes to Elam, I do like him. I do like the pick. I like the position, especially. I understand it. It makes all the sense in the world. I liked Kyler Gordon. Well, hold on. A lot of people liked Kyler Gordon. I liked Andrew Booth Jr. a lot, but I've heard a lot of things with him in terms of medicals and other stuff like that. As I'm hearing more, the Elam pick makes more sense. I still kind of wish the Bills would have moved up 2 more spots and taken Trent McDuffie. I just feel like he might be a safer player than Kaiir Elam. But Elam, and we've heard the word toolsy a lot over the past week. He really is toolsy, and he is a really good fit from what we've seen. And we've heard him speak now, and he seems like a great culture fit for this team. And he's going to work his ass off, and I think he's really going to embrace Buffalo. So those things, I'm not saying they don't matter. They do matter. I like the pick. I got no real problem with James Cook. All right, this is the one that to me that's fascinating because after the draft, I should have put these tweets up on the screen so I could give myself some more self-credit besides just wishing myself a happy birthday here. After night 1 of the draft and also the next morning, I flat out tweeted that I wanted James Cook. In fact, Friday morning, I said, good morning to James Cook only. That was my tweet. So I did want him. So I was quite clearly excited when the Bills drafted him, and they traded back twice to get him. He's a different kind of running back. He has not taken Devin Singletary's spot. He is, if you're a Patriots fan, you know James White very well, pass catching running back out of the backfield, catches the ball like crazy. That's James Cook in a nutshell. He wasn't even like he wasn't the workhorse running back at Georgia. I mean, this is not a guy who's going to carry the ball 15 to 20 times a game. He'll carry the ball 5 to 10 times a game. He'll catch the ball to the backfield. He gives the Bills a weapon that this offense did not have. I like Singletary. He played really well at the end of the year, but he's not really a pass-catching running back. I mean, he can catch the ball, but that's not what he does. Ditto with Zach Moss. So I like the pick because it fills something very specific. That said, there's a lot of people out there saying you could have got him around later and that you didn't need to take him in the second round. I don't really agree with that, though.
Yeah.
You got a position on your offense, and it might be the one thing this offense was lacking. I mean, obviously, I don't need to talk about Josh Allen or Diggs or Davis. You already know what they bring to the table. And Dawson Knox, too. And they got a good backup tight end in O.J. Howard, so they can run different personnel. But now you got a guy who's coming out of the backfield who can line up in the slot. He can create matchup problems. So I like the pick for that. I understand why it's not quite as well received, maybe with, well, not necessarily fans, because they receive literally anything the Bills do, but like people around the league, so I like that pick. The linebacker in the third round, I'd be lying if I said I knew a lot about him. I know he's undersized. He's talented. He's a good leader, highly skilled, good blitzer, undersized. Sounds like Matt Milano coming out of college.
I thought you were describing him. I thought you were describing Matt Milano right
just
there.
Like Matt Milano coming out of college. And I'll say this, man, Milano's been banged up for the last couple of years at times. Edmonds was hurt last year. So if you could get a guy in the third round, and instead of, like, it'd be nice. Who doesn't want to get a starter in the third round? Right. But if you got a guy who could come in and he's going to be better than the backups you have right now, and, so he's an upgrade with depth. If one of your linebackers get hurt, then good. And maybe maybe it's Edmonds, or maybe it's even Milano a year or two from now, who they don't keep long-term, and you got your guy. I personally wanted a guard. I thought they could get a guard who could come in and definitely start next year if Roger Saffold's only here one and done. And there were two guards that I liked that went immediately after that pick. And no, wasn't happy about that. Shakir in the fifth, I did hear about him. He is your future slot guy. I think Jamison Crowder's here now. He can take over that role next year. He's like a kind of Cole Beasley type player in terms of, what he brings to the table on the field. Just really highly productive guy. And then you talked about Punt God, and there's other guys, but we're not going to talk about them today. Yeah, Punt God's, look, he can boom the shit out of the ball. It's a great name to have, Punt God. I've seen 26 shirts already. He's got a shirt out, Punt God, which, by the way, I'm sure I'm going to buy that. But yeah, he's got to be able to hold. He's got to be able to kick directionally. He's going to have to be able to, learn how to sacrifice a little bit of length, because he'll outkick the coverage sometimes. So he's got a lot to learn. But it was cool to take him just because he was such a popular name during the process. I would consider the Bills draft, now that it's over, practical and sensible. Definitely not sexy. Like some teams had much better drafts on paper and sexy, but we also know, Joe, not just football. I mean, you cover hockey, man. Sometimes the draft looks great on paper and doesn't amount to shit. So, I mean, it's always wait and see, but this felt like a very practical draft for me,
Practicals, I think that's a good word. I look at it in some ways as these were a lot of like, they're practical picks, but they're also kind of luxury picks. Like the way you describe Cook.
Yeah.
Like you describe Cook, like he can do one thing very specifically very good. And it's like, okay, well, that's nice. But, is he going to be able to do some of that other stuff that a running back needs to do? Like, I don't know. Like, how well will he be able to do those things at the NFL level? If these guys do very specific things, I mean, like listen, if you had a roster, if you could have a roster big enough where you could have guys that just do certain things really well, I mean, you'd probably tip off what you're going to do most of the time if you just run them out there and you're like, okay, this guy's out here. It's like, well, they're going to do this. But like, it's a good position. Like, it's a nice position to be in where you can be like, okay, well, our running backs don't do this one thing very specifically well. Well, this guy does it. Okay, cool. Then you can plan some plays around that, get some formations around that. Maybe, certainly use them as a decoy. If people see him out there, they're like, oh, it's going to go to this guy, or, keep an eye on him. Maybe that loosens up the coverage for, a Davis underneath, or, or Diggs underneath or long or something like that. Like that's a nice thing to be able to do. But like, if you're looking for home run hitters, second, third, fourth, fifth rounds, like, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask. But, a lot of the way these things work is the right guy in the right place with the right set of coaches. Anything can work out well.
Sure.
Like that's the key thing. People have been practicing a lot of, changing history, but like Allen's almost very specifically what that was. If you put Josh Allen on the Jets, does he turn out this way?
Nope.
No. Like you put Josh Allen on the Lions, does he turn out this way? No, absolutely not. Like right situation, right coaches, right people. And, on his part too, the right motivation and the right work ethic. So, you need guys that kind of follow that sort of same way of going about things. And I think that's where a lot of what Bean and McDermott too, like when they're looking into these guys, you see a lot of talk about like high character profile guys. And, like that's good for selling, to people, just be like, oh yeah, this guy's not going to get in trouble, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't think it's not necessarily that. It's just that, these guys, high character means like they're going to take care of themselves and they're also going to work their ass off to get in the lineup and to be a productive player.
Those are, dude, you just dropped two really good fucking takes right there. That almost kind of got me.
Not a football guy right here, by the way.
Yeah, that's why I'm almost excited. That's like, well, I'm gonna wait to talk some Bills draft with Joe. I'm gonna tell you what, you are 100% right on both accounts, because when it comes to James Cook, and he's a perfect example, you want to talk about a luxury pick. That is a luxury pick. Now, Kyle Elam is not a luxury pick. He was a need corner. Mm-hmm. If they had one need, I would say corner, and they address it. But you get to the second round, man. Let's say, and this team's just so complete right now. Let's say they didn't sign Roger Saffold, or they didn't match Ryan Bates, that tenor that he got from Minnesota. Now you're left with a hole at guard. Are you going to trust Cody Ford? Probably not. So you might have to take a guard in that second round, even if you don't necessarily love one, because of that reason. There's other positions on the football team. We can say the same thing, like Jameson Crowder. They go, that's the Cole Beasley replacement. If they don't have him, maybe they got to take a receiver that they really don't like that much in that spot because it's a need. This was a luxury pick because they didn't really have a lot of needs, because they've really addressed them. Or say Von Miller. If they didn't go out and sign Von Miller, they might have needed to get another pass rusher in somewhere in the first 2 rounds, maybe even the first round, and they don't get to take the corner that they really liked a lot. Brandon Beane said that was the last guy on their board. We'll take his word for it that he had a first round grade on. Whether that's true or not, point being is maybe he doesn't have that luxury. Maybe he would have had to take in a defensive end in the first if they didn't go out and get Von Miller. So that's a great point. And I also agree about the coaching with the development. And the Bills do have a very good track record, not perfect, but a good track record of developing these guys. Like, that's why I don't get mad when I see Terrell Bernard get taken in the third round. My first thought is like, what? I'm like, we need guards. Who's it? And also, he wasn't even among the linebackers. I knew other linebackers much better than him. But then as you kind of sit back and analyze it a little bit, you're like, all right, well, look what they've done with Dawson Knox over the last couple of years, how he developed. You talked about Josh Allen. I agree 100%. He's in a different system. He still might be good, but he's sure as shit ain't, arguably one of the top 2 quarterbacks right now in the NFL. Right. Tremaine Edmonds. They developed Trey White. They developed a lot of their own into really, really good players. And I'll tell you, Joe, they're going to have to, because I did a solo pod a couple of days ago. And I mean, we've talked about this throughout the offseason a little bit, how stacked the AFC is. But man, it is really freaking stacked, man, because holy shit. And some of these teams right now, even like inside their own division, you have 6 or 7 teams that are going to be contenders. And we've talked about most of these teams. As I'm going through these tiers and looking at them, I'm like, you know what? There's 2 or 3 teams right now where if the quarterback does take that next step, they're going to throw their names in there as well, including 2 teams in the division. Yep. Miami for sure. I mean, they go out, they get Tyreek Hill. They got more than Tyreek Hill, man. They got a lot of good players. Tyreek Hill's the big one, but that offense with Chase Edmonds and Hill and Gesicki and Jalen Waddle, who's an amazing rookie, they might have better skill position players than the Buffalo Bills right now. Now, obviously, Tua was not even on the close to the same level as Josh Allen, and that's the difference maker. But yo, if Tua plays okay, Miami's there. And I know a lot of people are going to laugh at this, but if the New York Jets, if Zach Wilson happens to take a pretty big step in year 2, which is not impossible, I don't like him, but it could happen. Dude, the Jets got a lot of talent. I mean, that draft, they crushed that draft. They got Sauce Gardner, they got Johnson, they got Garrett Wilson, who was maybe the top receiver in this draft. And then they go in the round 2 and they get a guy Bills fans are very familiar with over the last few months, Breece Hall, who, from what I think Mike Silver wrote an article recently that had Elam not been available, that there was a good chance Breece Hall, he was definitely under consideration for the Bills' first round pick. Well, the Jets get him in round 2. Jets got a lot of talent. Jets had a good draft last year. They got some good young players. They got a couple good veteran players, but they got a quarterback who ain't done shit. If Zach Wilson improves in year 2, the Jets ain't going to be no pushover, man. I think the Patriots might be the worst. I think the New England Patriots could finish last in this division this year. That's how good, potentially, I think this conference as a whole is, and the AFC specifically can be.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like the Jets draft, listen, I can think back to some NHL drafts where I was like, wow, I can't believe this team was able to pull all these guys. Granted, those are 17, 18-year-old guys, but I can think back to a few years back where Montreal had a monster. I thought was a monster draft. I was like, wow, they got so many of these guys, and where are the Habs now? Well, they got a chance at the number 1 pick this year. Like, okay, you could say like, oh, well, they made the Stanley Cup final, 2 years ago, but whatever, please. The bubble final was weird. Anything like that is just weird, but but like when you win it on paper, like to me, that shows that your scouting has done their job, or certainly you get 3 first-round picks. That's makes it a little bit easier to be able to get the guys that have a lot of talent. But like, with these situations, like with Miami, with the Jets, the quarterbacks are really young, and it's been done to death that, like even last year we were saying about Tua, like, well, if he takes a Josh Allen step, look out for Miami. Well, this time around, you're not even looking for that big of a step. Like, you're not, Allen year 1 to year 2, it was a big step, but it wasn't like mind blowing. Year 2 to year 3 was a humongous difference. Like, that's a huge change. But like, if you can see a guy improve, this is going to sound terrible, but if you could see a guy improve to the performance level of like a Tannehill, like not wait 7 or 8 years to do that.
Sure.
But like, if he can have that kind of performance in the second year of their career, it's pretty good. Tannehill's, taking the team to the playoffs a couple of years in a row. Like, that's
AFC Championship a few years ago.
Right. So, I'm not saying that like that's their ceiling. Like, that's obviously not what Zach Wilson's ceiling is, or Tua, or even Mac Jones. Maybe Mac Jones, that might be his ceiling. I don't know, but like like you're not looking for these guys to just like immediately. If they do blow up huge in their second year, like, great, they'll take it. But when you're talking about guys that are just fresh out of college, man, like, NFL's still what it used to be. It's just guys are thrown right into the fire, after a few weeks of the season. Showing my old guy ways here, but I can remember when the Oilers drafted Steve McNair, and they were like, oh, he came out of Alcorn State. Like, that's not a real, that's not a pro powerhouse, blah, blah, blah. Like, Jeff Fisher's whole thing was like, well, we're going to have him sit out the year. We're have him watch, and then he'll go from there. I forget who was quarterback before that. Maybe Cody Carlson. I don't know. I don't quite remember who was the quarterback before that. We're going back to some days there, Pat.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, when it was finally time to get in there, it was just like, oh yeah, no, this guy's actually really good. So, but like they took their time. They had, having a guy learn on the job like that and just basically hold a clipboard for a whole season, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, you take a quarterback in the first round, the clock starts, for whoever the incumbent quarterback is, the clock starts to when the guy backing you up is going to start. And, it's up to that guy to make sure that doesn't happen. But sometimes it just doesn't matter. Like, think back to, people are going to hate this one, but like, think back to when McDermott was all hot and bothered to get Peterman into the lineup. When Tyrod was just basically like, they were waiting for Tyrod to have a really bad week, and then it was like, okay, it's Peterman time.
Sure.
He has that horrible game against New Orleans. The whole team had a horrible game against New Orleans at home. They get smoked, and then, even though they're like right in the playoff race, they were in a wild card spot at that time. McDermott says, hey, all right, it's Peterman time. We need to change a quarterback. And that lasted a half, like, it just, things like that can happen, but it's tough. It's really tough for these teams to try to figure out what exactly they've got until they throw these guys in. But there's no patience now. Like, coaches can't wait. Coaches get fired at the drop of a hat now.
Sure.
Look what happened with Flores in Miami last year. There was a lot going on there. There was a lot going on in Miami, but still, that was a team that, they started out horrible. If they fired him after the first 8 weeks, 9 weeks of the season, justified.
Yeah.
But then they win like 7, 8 in a row to end the year, and they end up in a playoff race. You're like, okay, maybe they got something here, and then, whatever. But like, the pressure's always on. It's never not on. So if you draft a guy and you got a lot of say in that, you better to save your own neck, you got to put this guy in there.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm going to tell you, your insight is on today because you dropped the name Ryan Tannehill, and I'm like, you know what? That is a great bar to set right now for two teams specifically that we just talked about, the Jets and Miami. If you get Ryan Tannehill level play from those teams, I think the Jets are respectable. I think they won 4-13 last year. Maybe they go 8-9 this year with Ryan Tannehill level play from Zach Wilson. Still not really a contender yet, but a team that's on the rise. If you take Miami into a plays Ryan Tannehill level, I'm telling you now, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Look, Tyreek Hill is a Bills killer. He has destroyed the Bills in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They've contained him during the regular season, but who gives a shit? Playoffs, Tyreek Hill's killed him twice. Jalen Waddle is a stud. Miami is a good football team. See, this is the thing. If you could take the Bills, and I still think the Bills are the best, most complete team in the NFL, and I truly mean that, and it's not even being a fan. I truly mean that.
Right.
And I still, they deserve to be the Vegas favorite right now to win the Super Bowl. Not by a lot, but they deserve it.
Right.
If you took the Bills and you flip-flop them with, say, the New York Giants, and you put the Bills in the NFC, I could sit here and write down in pen right now, the Bills are going to the NFC Championship game. Because that conference is weak. There's only a couple teams. That's the thing. The Bills are a great team, but there's a lot of great teams in the AFC right now. I think there's 5 teams that are supreme, and I'm not even going to count Miami or Indy or Denver, who did get Russ Wilson, but you got Baltimore, who was decimated by injuries last year. They crushed another draft. Lamar Jackson's going to be back. They got almost everything except wide receiver. I mean, that team, that defense, they are good, real good. I still think the Chargers are like Miami in a way. They got a lot of weapons. They can run the ball. They got great receivers. They got a lot of talent on defense too. The difference is Justin Herbert is a stud, whereas Tua is not. So you better put the Chargers up there. I don't care about the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill. Well, I do care, but the Chiefs still deserve to be right up there at the top because they still have Patrick Mahomes, who might be the best quarterback in the NFL, probably is, and Travis Kelce, who is the best tight end in the NFL. And they got other guys and other weapons as well, and a great coach in Andy Reid.
Yep.
The Bills. And then the one team that I can't believe people still sleep on them, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. It just blows my mind. They won the AFC last year. It's not their fault that the Bills lost against Kansas City and they didn't get to play them. And that team went into this offseason with a weak offensive line, and they fixed it. They got 3 good starters in free agency. Then they go into this draft. They get Daxon Hill. They get Andrew. And they got another corner, too. I can't remember. It might have been Andrew Booth Jr., the guy who I liked a lot. I would have been happy if he was a Bill. So they got talent in the secondary. People are just sleeping on the Bengals like they're going to be like the 7th or 8th seed in the AFC this year. I just think that's nuts. Joey Burrow's only going to be going into year 3. He still might get better.
He had an incredible year 2. Year 2 is amazing.
Jamar Chase is already one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he was just a rookie last year. Joe Mixon's good. The Cincinnati Bengals are very, 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 very legit. So,
it's and like the AFC West is a murder show, man. Like all 4 teams are incredibly difficult. Like, I mean, you haven't even mentioned the Raiders. The Raiders made the playoffs.
and they got Devontae Adams. And they got Chandler Jones.
Right. And, and Derek Carr's not a bum quarterback. Derek Carr can sling it. Like, I mean, the question with them is their defense, but like the defense played okay last year. Like, I mean, it wasn't anything to write home about. Like, you're going to get shredded when you're playing the Chargers and the Chiefs twice,
right?
In a year, but I mean, Denver adds Wilson. Like, Denver didn't really impress me at all last year, but they hung around and they had no, like Drew Lock playing quarterback. Like, okay, man, cool. That and what Teddy Bridgewater, Bridgewater got hurt. So like, I mean, unfortunately that always happens, but I mean, like the West is evil. The West is evil. The North is going to be really tough. I mean, we'll see what happens with Cleveland with Watson. Pittsburgh, every time I want to count out Pittsburgh, they wind up right in the mix, for a wild card spot or the division.
They're always hanging around.
Right.
They're always good enough to be in the mix. Sure.
And then you got the stinking Colts. Like, we haven't even mentioned the Colts or the Titans. The Titans were the top team in the AFC last year. I mean, by record. they were not the best team in the AFC, but like
I know it is funny. You're right, because they were the top seed in the AFC, but they might not even be one of the best 8 or 9 teams right now in this conference. But they're still good.
Colts have arguably the best running back in the NFL. And who are they running at quarterback? Oh, Matt Ryan, right? So
better
somebody
than Carson Wentz.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like it's tough, man. Like if if you're able to pick out how if you're able to predict how the AFC playoff tree is going to set up before this season starts, man, you're probably incredibly lucky, or you're a friggin' genius. Like there's because it's impossible to see how this is going to shake out. It really is. And like you mentioned the Jets, and I had to look back and I was like, they beat a couple of impressive teams last year. Yeah, they did. They beat Tennessee, and who's the other one they beat? They beat Cincinnati. Like, yeah, I mean, they're both home games, and like the Jets very weirdly played very tough at home sometimes, but they would hulk up on occasion, and just you're like, wow, where's this team been? Like that Tennessee game, that entire Tennessee game was just like, who the hell's this team? I haven't seen this team play all year. So, and like that was a team that had a couple of young guys on defense that played really, really well. So, the arms race, almost literally the arms race in the AFC is nuts. Like I can't believe all these teams have pushed in this hard because I don't know how they even saw an opportunity, or if it was just because they're like, well, Kansas City and Buffalo are way ahead of us. We got to catch up. Okay, man. Like, I mean, at this point, just ask to transfer to the NFC. Just be like, just like 1 year. Like you put the Colts in the NFC South. Like them and the Bucks are going head to head for the lead in the division. You put Baltimore or Cincinnati in the NFC North. Like, okay, you got Green Bay there, but like you're gonna whoop up on the other three teams.
Sure.
They got no chance. Take any of the other I don't know about any of the other teams, but like you take Miami and put them in the NFC East. Okay, I mean like Dallas is there, but like Dallas doesn't do anything. Like they make the playoffs and then they lose. Like that's what
they underachieve all the time.
Right. So I mean, the opportunities in the AFC are really tough, and it's going to be a year where week to week, it's going to be really hard because and the NFL is already a league where you lose game one and everybody's like, oh boy, how's this going to work? Bills lose the Steelers in game one last year. Everybody's like, well, what the hell? Like, what's going on here? Like Steelers lucked out in that game, mind you, but like nobody thought they were going to win, but sure enough, they did. And everything gets overanalyzed, everything's talked about nonstop. So but like this year, legitimately, every loss is going to be like, oh boy, well, how is this going to shake out for the rest of the season? It's going to be really interesting.
All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. Look, we can talk about how good the AFC is probably for 2 or 3 hours. It's just so goddamn loaded. Let's turn our attention for a few minutes to hockey. And Sabres, obviously no playoffs for them, but Rochester is in the playoffs. They're in the best of 3, and they did win game 1 on Wednesday night over Bellevue. Thoughts on, let me ask you this. Should fans care? Because look, it's cool that they're in the playoffs, and I get it. It's something to get excited about. Should fans care? Let me take that back. I don't like that question.
You're gonna get yelled at by everybody in Rochester.
No, because fans do care. Fans do care. So again, I'm saving myself for what would be a stupid question. Let me ask you this instead: is it overblown a little bit, the significance of guys like Peterka and Quinn and any legit prospect that's playing in Rochester right now that's actually in this playoff series, and hopefully they can win in advance? Is it overblown, or is it legitimately significant that these guys are getting AHL playoff experience? How much do you think that's going to matter ultimately for these guys?
Well, in the case of guys like Peterka and Quinn, this is the reason why they've stayed down there all season. That's why Quinn wasn't getting a call up. The last couple weeks of the year. Peterka only got some games up here because of injuries, and they wanted to get an early look at him.
Sure.
Well, that's not even the reason. That's getting a look at him wasn't the real reason. They get plenty of looks at him in Rochester, but but that's the reason why those guys were down there all season, was to do this, to get these kinds of games, to get that kind of competition, because playoff games, no matter what level, the competition level is a lot higher, and the games are tougher, and you get to you get an idea of how these guys are going to perform in those kinds of situations. Like, the fact that they're in this series against Belleville, where, the Sens did them a big favor by beating Toronto last game of the year to get the Amerks into the playoffs. So, the era of good feelings lasted all of one game for Rochester about the Senators, but But this is, the Sens roster is pretty tough. They've got a couple of nice goalie prospects. They've got some guys that will probably play the NHL, if not next year, then the year after. But in the Rochester lineup, listen, it's extremely top heavy with guys that are going to push for the NHL roster next year, or we've already got penciled in. Quinn is penciled in already. Paterka is going to push for it. He's going to be there eventually. He's going to be in the NHL at some point next season. Question is whether it's going to be right out of camp or not. Sean Malone, if Malone hadn't gotten hurt for a spell this season, he probably would have been in Buffalo for a good stretch. He probably would have put Cody Eakin on the bench for a good long while. Let's put it that way. He's had that kind of year. And then obviously Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he didn't get called up at all because they wanted him to play a bunch, and B, they wanted him to get these kinds of games. Now, unfortunately, he gets hurt in the last regular season game second to last regular season game against Utica, and he's out for this series. And the way Seth Appert's kind of couching terms, I wonder if he would be available against Utica in the next round if they advance. So, that's really sad, but that's really unfortunate that they might not be available. But yeah, no, these are the situations that these guys were meant to be in from the start of the season. Like this is where you wanted these guys to be and to perform. That's why if they hadn't made the playoffs, it would have been really tough. There would have been a lot of second guessing of how Adams ran things at the end of the year, because the whole reason you had guys like Quinn down there the whole year was to play in the AHL playoffs and to see how he performs in those situations. And if they don't get there, then it seems like a lost opportunity to see him more at the NHL level. Same for Luukkonen. Like that's where you get some second guessing, you get some questioning, and then Sabres and Amerks fans can yell at each other more about like this, that, and the other thing. But for right now, yeah, these games are important. Like that was a really long road to get to the answer. Yes, these games are important for them and it matters.
Switching back to the parent club. So I think a term that we've said on this podcast, you or I, whatever, several times over the last handful of weeks, maybe even 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, is good vibes. We've said that a lot with the Sabres. There's been a lot of good vibes this second half of the season, from the Vegas game to the Heritage Classic to the Rick Jeanneret stuff to the season finale, which, we taped last week before that happened. Really cool to come back and win in overtime in his last game. Lots of good vibes. The crowd was great that game. It was fun. And by the way, on Twitter, I think it might have been Wednesday or Thursday, it was the 15-year anniversary of when Drury scored in the final seconds against the Rangers in the playoffs, and then a Finneganov won in overtime. And I'm telling you, that crowd going nuts and the party in the plaza, people jumping on top of each other, legit chills were going down my arm watching it, man. I'm like, God, what I wouldn't do for that, which kind of leads to this. So, yes, feel good vibes. The Sabres have improved. We're eager to see them hopefully take the next step next season. That said, attendance figures came out for the season, and the Sabres were quite literally dead last in the NHL in attendance. They averaged 9,595 fans per game. And as you pointed out to me, and I want you to point out as well to people listening and watching, those numbers can even be inflated because of the Heritage game that you told me about. And also, it also felt like there were plenty of games where they would announce 7,000, 8,000, and it felt like there were 3,000 in the arena. Like people were actually watching the game. What is it going to take? I mean, obviously winning is the obvious answer, but
Right.
What's this team to do right now to get fans to go to the games? Because us talking about it, us tweeting about it, and things like that is one thing, but to get these fans to physically go into the arena and watch this team play, which, by the way, during a lot of these season-ending press conferences and locker room cleanouts, which I'm looking forward to you and Lance kind of hitting on, on Maintenance Day podcast, you could tell that these players really like when the energy that the fans give them, and they're craving it. They want more of that. What's it going to take? Besides maybe just winning more games, or is it that's just it to get these fans to start walking through those doors more often next year? Because to finish dead last in the NHL, it's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, it's it's really tough. Like the team itself is in a hole just based on everything that's happened the last 10, 11 years. Like that's
Sure.
the big hill you're climbing up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the failed, the failed rebuilds, the promises left unfulfilled. Guys, it just didn't work out. The whole Jack and Sam and all that stuff. Like things just didn't work. So there are a lot of lines that fans have been fed that they've been like, okay, all right, yeah, we're with you. And now that it's you get to this point, you can try to run out that same reasoning. Fans are gonna be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like that's what happened with the season ticket stuff this year. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, who's gonna make that kind of an investment when it's just kind of like, no, really, no, we're really trying here. Like you're gonna like these guys. Like, sure we will. Okay. But yes, winning's the important thing. Playing an exciting style of hockey, which they do now, is good because that'll get people in the seats because it's like, well, if they lose, at least it'll be fun to watch.
Sure.
Like that's that's kind of how it was towards the end of the season. It's like, well, they're fun. Hey, if they win, bonus. Like that's great. But at least you get to see Thompson score goals or Skinner score goals or guys like that. Darlene makes some crazy play. Like that's watch Owen Power play. Like that's those are the things that you can build on. Like they're not going to this isn't rebuilding Rome in a day for the Sabres. This is they need to build on this season and have it grow more. Like they have to be more competitive next year, because people are gonna say, oh no, they did great this year. They had 75 points. I get it was the 9th worst in the league, which is not terrible, but but amongst the lottery teams, it's you're middle of the pack in the lottery.
Yeah, they're not even in the ballpark.
You're not horrible, and you're not in you're not in the race for the playoffs either. Like that's
not even close.
Yeah, like no, 100 points got the Capitals in the playoffs. They were the number 8 team this year. 100 points. They were short by 25 points this year. That's 12 and a half.
That's crazy.
Wins away. Like that's a lot of points. That's a lot of games.
When you put it that way, holy shit, that is that's a big mountain to climb, man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's you think of like 1-goal games where if it didn't go to overtime, like those are kind of coin flip types of games, or a game that goes to overtime or the shootout, those are automatically 1-goal games, but you flip a couple of those and it's like, suddenly those L's or W's and you're like, okay, we're a little bit closer. It's either an extra 1 or 2 points. So, I mean, like, you can look back on it like that and say, all right, that's cool. Flip some of those and we'll go from there. But there's a lot this team, the organization can do. It's not the team, the organization can do to make it people want to go down there. The way things have always been thought here is that we put a winner on the ice. We don't need to do anything else for you. Like when it comes,
Mm-hmm.
or, season ticket bonuses or, season ticket, boosts for buying in.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole mentality has been like, well, if we put a winning team on the ice, we don't have to go the extra mile for you. It seems like that mindset has been changing a little bit. They've been doing some more interesting promos. Sometimes ownership groups will look at giveaways as like, as a cheap way to fill the seats, but like, who cares? You want to get people to sit in the seats for an Islanders Sabres game in the middle of January on a Wednesday night. Give away a bobblehead. Give away something cool.
Yeah.
Give it away to enough people so that they'll all get one. Capping it at 10,000 all the time is just like, all right, well, you've guaranteed maybe that you get 10,000, which aim a little higher. Maybe make it so. And if you got extras, whatever, sell them in the store. Who gives a shit? You already make extras anyways. Like nobody cares,
right?
And like you got money to spend, but make it better for make it more interesting and make it better for just casual fans to want to pop down and watch a game. Like that's you have to do these kinds of things, and my big thing is also fix up the inside of the damn arena, for God's sake. Like, the number of times where I've sat in there for, a practice or a morning skate or whatever. And, we sit in the 100 level watching from there, from the seats. And like, these are the expensive seats. These are the ones that people pay the most for. And you've got like broken armrests. You've got some seats that are just totally broken. Everything's covered in some kind of filth. You got rusty bolts putting some of the cup holders on, if there is a cup holder. Like, just everything's just nasty and gnarly. Just you got to show that you care about it, And I saw somebody got a little upset that I think Adams was asked a question.
He was
about that, and
it
fans
was
got a little annoyed about that. I'm like, well, ownership's not there to talk.
That's because it was Mike Harrington who asked it, and I saw some people get cringy. I thought it was a legitimate question because it is a shithole inside there.
It's a totally legit question because you're not going to get to talk to ownership. Ron Racui is not going to be in there to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Anytime he had, Racui was there to talk about Build Stadium stuff, somebody would ask him a Sabres thing. He's like, nah. We'll get, we're not here to discuss that now. We're like, right. That's or arena fix up plans. They're like, well, that's not in our plans right now. Like, okay, like whatever. But I mean, you got to do something. You got to make it a little nicer inside for people. I think about like Tampa Bay's arena. The Tampa Bay's arena, Amalie Arena is, I don't think it's that old. It's certainly not as old as Key Bank Center.
Right.
But they put a lot of money into, sprucing up the look in there. Like they put they put Tesla coils in there, first of all, for goal celebrations, which is, you're not going to have a buffalo with swords running around the arena in here. So like, you're just not going to do that. People running around with swords be like, go Sabres. You're just not doing that here. But like, they centered part of the upper level around the organ. Like they put in this giant pipe organ there. It's gorgeous. It's looks unbelievable. Like they made everything look a lot nicer in there. It's a much more pleasant place to see a game than I guess than it used to be. But you gotta, sometimes you gotta spend money to make money, and like that way of thinking of things with the Sabres hasn't always been there. I mean, it's there was a couple of seasons under Botterill where they spent to the cap and over it, but it's only that'll only go so far on the ice. But like to get people into the arena and make them want to be there, we'll put a winner on the ice and make it nicer to be there.
It's Kevin Adams. I did watch his press conference earlier. He did some good dancing around Mike's question about it inside, just being terrible. And it was mainly, we're going to win games and that'll excite fans, but also I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he alluded to the fact of tell us what you'd like to see done. I'm like, why? What are you going to really do about it? Absolutely.
I shouldn't have to need a tetanus shot to sit in the 100 levels.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing.
It's not good. One other Sabre thing of note too, because by the time we tape this next week, we will know next Tuesday, May 10th is the NHL draft lottery. The Sabres have the 9th best chance of winning the lottery, 5.4%. And the way the draft is, if people don't know, they're drawing 2 teams. So there 2 teams will be at the top of the lottery. So the worst the Sabres can draft is 11th. Obviously, the best they can draft is 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
For them to finish 11th, that would mean 2 teams after them would have to both get into the lottery. Unlikely. So in all probability, so they're drafted 1st, 2nd, 9th, 10th, or 11th. Those will be the spots they draft. And in terms of Vegas, because I know a lot of people are interested in how that goes. The Sabres own that pick unless they get into the top 10. Now, the only way they get in the top 10 is if they win the lottery. So if you're watching from home, you don't want Vegas to win the lottery. If they get in the top 10, that does you no good if they win the lottery. So don't get excited about that. So ideally, and most realistically, the Sabres are going to pick 9th or 10th. And then they'll also get the 16th pick as long as Vegas doesn't get in there. I got a request for you for Maintenance Day podcast, the one you do with Lance.
Yeah.
You and Lance could do it much better than me. I would love to have an entire segment focused on Jeff Skinner because I think the Sabres, this year the big storylines have been Dahlin becoming a stud, or Tage Thompson, obviously 38 goals, just an absolutely incredible year. Lots of storylines, and I kind of feel like to some extent Skinner, not fully, but to some extent, is kind of went under the radar. I mean, the dude had 33 goals this year. It's he had 7 goals. I'm looking up his numbers now. 7 goals in 53 games last year and only 14 and 59 the year before. Mm-hmm. He has scored 30 goals now 5 times in his career. You and Lance can do it much better than I can. So I'm going to put in a little bit of request here to, for if not this week, that coming up for you guys soon. I would love to hear a deep thought conversation or a deep dive into Jeff Skinner and how much, beyond just the obvious with Ralph Kruger, what makes this guy a really good player. I think you and Lance would crush that.
let me tell you, we're the off season. Lance and I talked about this this past week. The off season, we're just like, oh well, the season ran a little longer. We'll have fewer weeks to get this training camp, and then I counted up the weeks. It's 20 or 21 weeks until training camp starts. So we're gonna have a lot of time on our hands. We could probably do a player by player podcast of how things are gonna go if we really wanted to do it that way. So I think you're gonna get a Skinner centric episode at some point in the off season. I wouldn't worry about that.
All right, I'll be looking forward to that. Last week, our starting five draft, or not last week. Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? It was 2 weeks ago. Last week we didn't do one because the Bills draft and the Sabres, RJ final game, home game or whatever. Or what was it? It was something last Thursday that we didn't do it. I don't know. We were busy as shit. We said we're not.
Definitely the draft. The draft was definitely the reason to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus the Sabres did have a game. They played Thursday night and we taped after the game. But anyway, we did first name Chris. You know what? I won this one 63 to 37%. I'll run through them like we always do. I drafted Chris Rock, Chris Farley, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Jericho, Christopher Reeves. Joe took Chris Evans, Chris Paul, Chris Pratt, Christopher Walken, and Christopher Lloyd. My only two thoughts on it are this. My take in terms of the draft itself is if this would have been done on a national level, if this was talking United States podcast instead of talking Buffalo podcast, I think Chris Paul would have played very well. But I think maybe in the Buffalo market, people really don't care about Chris Paul. That's my one thought.
Or the NBA.
Or the NBA. Exactly. My other thought was, we talked about this a little bit before we started taping. I was like, it was like not the most exciting category. Like we try to make these as fun as possible. Yeah. Sometimes they might fall a little flat. Sometimes they go over really well. This was one of those. And look, when you do 41 of these like we've done, from time to time, you're going to have some that fall a little bit flat. And this was, for me, this was definitely one of them. I don't know. Was it exciting? Yeah. People voted. I mean, the votes were there. There were some comments here and there, but I don't think this resonated that well. It's still a W for your boy though, man. So.
I mean, hey, listen, take a dub. Even an ugly dub is still a dub. Like that's fine. But yeah, we talked about it and we were just kind of like, man, if we're reaching on, people's first, famous first names, like, yeah, I don't know. It felt more like doing homework than doing a poll, like it was just kind of
I completely agree.
We don't want it to get to that point. We don't want it to, we don't want to get to the end and be like, oh, we're doing this again. Like we don't like, that's the last thing we want to be doing. So again, I'll jump on you, Pat, here and say, we're putting out the call. If you got some good ideas, we'd love to hear them. So,
yeah, absolutely. Tweet at us for sure, man. I did that once before and we got a shitload of them actually, and it went over well. So maybe I'll put that up on Twitter as well this week for some ideas. Well, this week, again, I just watched all these MCU movies, so I'm not letting this go to waste. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I thought we were doing MCU characters. I made a graphic for MCU characters. If you happen to be watching on YouTube right now, you could even see it up there. I had something all set to go. And then Joe pointed out again, right before we started taping, that we've already done these. Duh. I'm like, yes, God damn it. I had to look because I still didn't believe you. I mean, I believed you, but I couldn't remember.
Right.
And lo and behold, you were right. But we are going to keep this. We're going to do MCU movies. There's 27 of them. Again, I just watched them all. Doctor Strange is coming out this weekend. I just feel like this is the perfect time to do it. And little pro tip here. So it probably doesn't always go over. I don't know your preparation process. I don't know if you kind of write some stuff down or think about it, or if you just do it on the fly every week. I don't know. I don't ask you that. But I can tell you that I generally speaking come up with 8 to 10 names for every category we do. And I at least do some homework on it and try to have an idea of what we're going to do. We're literally doing this on the fly right now because I had zero prep time. So I'm probably going to refer to my own little power rankings list that I've come up with. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, man, no pre-thoughts here, no strategy. This is literally going to be on the fly. I went first for the Chris's because I took Chris Rock. So that means you're going to be up first. So you're going to have your first. And again, these are the 27 MCU movies, not the TV series. So if anyone's out there yelling, well, take low key the TV series. No, these are the 27 MCU movies.
Take Hawkeye. Like, no, sorry, we're not doing that.
Right. Exactly. So you're up first, man. What you gonna go with?
Yeah, so there's a lot of I mean, geez, there's so many. Like I almost get tired thinking about it. You said 27 movies. I'm just like, oh my god.
By the way, one other thing too. I
can't believe you did that. Honestly,
I asked you a
crazy.
question. I asked you a question, and you almost were like offended by it because I forgot about the MCU characters. I asked Joe. I said, "Are you an MCU guy?" And he says, "Are you serious?" Like I offended you with that.
Are you into the comics at all? Like what? Do I need to show you my bookcase, man? Like, God's sake! Like, I have a handful of graphic novels sitting in my trunk that I was just like, I need to find somebody to donate these to or sell them or something. Like, it's just a pile of stuff. Like, there's so much crap on my shelf, and then there's even more in my car. So, I mean, if you ever see me out someplace and you just want some random graphic novel, hey, hit me up. I got it. I might not even charge you for it. Just please take these. But I know what is going on here, Pat. So, with that, like, there's quite a few contenders that you could take number one here. I don't think there's one that's an absolute, runaway and hide choice. With this. So I to me, there's like 5 or 6 where I think if you pick it, you're justified. For me though, I'm going to go with one that I think is genuinely really good, but it's also one that I really enjoyed watching. And for me, that's Thor Ragnarok.
You fucker.
Why were you thinking I was not going to take that, or like you were already had designs? You already have it written down that you were going to take it second or third.
That was my number one for a long, long time.
Oh
too,
man.
Okay.
Oh
my God.
Damn. Yeah, no, the whole movie, and it's fresh in my mind because it was a Twitter conversation talking about Cate Blanchett as Hela, which, whoo, buddy, wow, like, damn, but like the whole movie is just funny. Like, it's Hemsworth at his best. Him and Hulk, Thor and Hulk playing off of each other. You got what Jeff Goldblum popping in for a hot minute. Just all like the goofball stuff that goes in it. And it's also like pretty vital story to like Thor's storyline. I don't know how much it plays, to the giant perspective of the entire Avengers thing, but like it's a pretty vital thing. Like it's a pretty big cog. So but yeah, that was a movie where I was just like, I left the theater and I was like, oh, that was very satisfying. That was very good. So that's one where I feel very confident in saying that it's my most enjoyed one. So I feel like I can take it number one.
I'll say this too, man. The one-liners endless in there. Yeah. Absolutely hilarious. And also the scene where Hulk and Thor are fighting, and at some point Hulk takes him and just starts smashing him on the ground, and Loki got up. He was so excited because it reminded him of when he got smashed up by Hulk when Loki did. I literally started laughing out loud during that. And yeah, Loki's like a bad guy and a good guy in the same movie. It's just that movie had absolutely everything. So that was one of that very well may have been, if I had the first pick of this draft, I thought I'd be throwing out a shocker by taking them, but apparently not.
No. It's like I said, like there's probably 5 or 6 that you're justified in being sure. Like, I think that's the best one.
I agree. All right. So I got 2 here. The first one I'm going to take, I don't think this is going to be a surprise, but I'm going to go with the Avengers Endgame just because of the sheer consequence of it. I mean, everybody is in that movie. And by the way, at this point, there are no spoilers. So, I mean, if you ain't watched these by now, tough shit.
I'm not pulling a Shady McCoy on this one.
I didn't know, again, maybe because I have no history, prior knowledge of how these play out. Like I have never read any of the comic books. I have no idea what's going to happen. These are things that happen to me that I have no idea they're happening. Did not know. Tony Stark's gone. Natasha, gone. Captain America goes back or stays in time. You know what I mean? At the end, the emotion of it all, it was just fucking phenomenal, man. It was absolutely phenomenal. A lot of times, and because there's a couple Avengers ones where I think where they just stuff so much shit in at once that it just moves so fast. It's just so chaotic that nothing gets to breathe. This one I thought was, I don't know, man. I thought it was perfect. So that's going to be my first one. And then my other one, and this is going to be recency bias, I'm sure. to some people at least anyway, but I just watched it. It was the last one. I just watched it for the first time a couple nights ago. Spider-Man, No Way Home. I loved it. All 3 Spider-Man were in there. One of the things I've always wondered, and again, this is coming from someone who's uneducated and doesn't know a lot about the MCU, the universe. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered, I'm like, all right, well, I know Tobey Maguire has been Spider-Man. I know Andrew Garfield's been Spider-Man. How the hell? And now this other guy is Spider-Man. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Are they just getting different guys to do the same thing? The way they made it so that those 2 appeared in the movie was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, God, why Tom Holland is the character, the guy who plays Peter Parker?
Yes.
Spider-Man. Tom, absolutely phenomenal, man. When Aunt May dies, the emotion he has, and when he realizes the consequence of everything, it's just, it tore me up, man, at the end. Between his, and then when he has to let go of MJ and his best friend because he knows that's what's best for them to have a good future, to be able to go to college and stuff like that. And he wants to tell him who he is, but then he doesn't. He knows what his responsibility is. It just, I don't know, man. I got really emotional watching that. It gave, plus the action. I mean, I think it got nominated for an Oscar for best visual effects, which not a lot of these movies actually have. The fight scenes, the action scenes, just I absolutely loved this movie. So yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. That'll be my second one.
That's it. That's I cannot argue with either of those. Those are super picks.
That's new. It's the newest one too. Well, Doctor Strange is the newest one, but anyway, this is the most recent one before that. All right, you got 2 coming up.
So I feel like I have to intercept you because your first pick was Endgame. I gotta go in Avengers Infinity War because it's also extremely good. That movie made me very anxious to see how they were gonna follow that up because of the way Infinity War winds up. Holy crap, man. Like, Thanos gets his way and gets to do what he wants. And it's like, oh, they really did that. Okay. That's crazy. But, it's because that's something you 100% do not expect to happen. Like, because you're just, how are they going to, come on. You
conquer the bad guy.
Kill half the Avengers. Come on.
The formula is always you conquer the bad guy, but then the next bad thing gets set up. This was, you went to a wrestling match and the bad guys all won.
Right. Yeah. It's, and then like there's some scenes where, it became like a meme instantly. Like the second you get over like the shock of seeing it in the movie or whatever. But the scene where Peter Parker, he goes, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so well. See ya. Like he's gone. You're like, what? He just melted Superman. Like that's crazy. Or Spider-Man. Holy jeez. Like that's, oh man. But yeah, that was, I mean, it's tougher because it's like on the sad end of things because like it's a really tough way for a movie to end. But like the whole build up to, to getting the Infinity Stones and all the stuff that happens and all the other characters that show up, that maybe you weren't expecting to see, like, seeing Red Skull show up again. You're just, oh, what? How? Like, well, how did that happen? Like, that's crazy. But you get like all that happening, and it's like an all-star game. Both that and Endgame are, all the Avengers movies are all-star games. But but that was a super one. Like I really enjoyed that, and the Endgame payoff is obviously great. So yeah, I got to go with that one, and then. You could have predicted this. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is the next pick because I've said like a lot that this is like of all the Marvel movies, this is like the best spy movie. And the scenes that you can take away out of this as like being like all-time scenes. There's a few of them. There's Captain America in the elevator. First of all, the elevator fight is sick. Like that's such an awesome scene. But also the fight on the causeway where Bucky, Winter Soldier shows up and just starts creating mayhem all over the roads, and Cap is just like, oh boy, here we go. Like that whole scene is nuts. Like that's an awesome thing. But also you get like Robert Redford in the movie being a total dirtbag. Like that's okay.
He was awesome.
What a great guy to pull out for that.
And realistic. I believed it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Like you see him in that movie, you're just like, I don't know if I trust that guy. And yeah, sure enough, you can. But yeah, like the way that whole movie plays out, man, that's still one of my absolute favorites. That's
a really good pick. The funny thing about Infinity War, I got to say this too. When that came out, I hadn't at that point watched many of the MCU movies, and I never seen that. And I remember the internet just getting inundated with those dust memes. People disintegrating. Like whenever a team lost or a player did bad or something, there would be graphics of of people disintegrating. It was driving me fucking nuts because I didn't know what any of that was about.
Like, what is this dust shit? I don't know. What the hell's happening?
I loved Winter Soldier. I had both those in my top 5, by the way. I'm looking at my power rankings that I did for these. All right, so I got 2 here. This one, I think I like this more than a lot of other people do. And I guess because I've gotten, of all the ones I've like put up there, at least on Facebook anyway, people.
Oh, no, you're not going to pick what I think you're going to pick.
No, well, it's another Avengers one. It's Age of Ultron. And I think there's a very mixed bag. See, I know you can see that. I don't know, man. I like them all. I'm partial to the ones where they're together. You also got Juan and Pietro there for the first time. I liked everything about that except the voice.
You don't like James Spader? Ultron.
No, because you know why? I thought I was watching.
Is it distracting because it's Spader?
Yes, because I was like, is this Robert California from The Office playing the role of a
this evil robot? Yes.
I like this. I admittedly like this movie again more than I think most people do, including quite obviously yourself. I can tell by your initial reaction. I got to stick with my guns, man. I'm going to stay with that one. And then for my second pick, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I like that a lot. Didn't know anything about any of these characters. By the end of the movie, I really liked them. And by the way, had we done, and we did do it, I just don't remember, Drax is a very underrated, funny character. You see what I'm talking about on there. Chris Pratt, it's almost like one of those ensemble casts where, like Seinfeld, I love Seinfeld, but I don't know that Jerry Seinfeld, I don't even know if he was one of my 3 favorite characters on the show. That's kind of how I almost feel about Chris Pratt as Star-Lord right now. Like I liked Rocket Raccoon. I love obviously Groot. There's a lot of things about this movie that I actually like more than I liked Chris Pratt. But anyway, I feel pretty good about that one. I know Age of Ultron. We'll see how that goes. But I got to stick to my guns. So that's what I got. Now you're going to have your last 2 here.
I respect that you're sticking to your guns.
All right, let me ask you this before you make your 2, because quite obviously you don't agree, which is good. What did you not like about Ultron? Or is it just that you think that there's a lot more that you just like more than that? You didn't necessarily dislike it.
I just think the whole tone of that movie is just very off. And maybe it's just because of the Ultron character itself, but it's just, that's one where like I read the graphic novel. Okay. Fine. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, well, it's different in the book. Say, well, that's not how it should be. I'm not going to pull that crap because listen, the movie universe is related to, but different than how they do stuff in the books. But like, I don't know, man. It's just something about it just didn't sit totally right with me for whatever reason. Like I just was like, whatever.
Okay.
I just like, it's like, I mean, if you want to watch it, okay, fine. Like, I mean, I'm not going to be shitty towards you for picking it. Like, I'm just kind of like, I just don't agree. I just don't agree that it belongs that high up. That's my
fair
main
enough.
thing. I also think you're going to get killed for having it there. So, it might work to my benefit. Let's put it that way. So my next 2, I got to go with Black Panther.
Okay.
Black Panther was awesome. And, not just for the title character, but also Killmonger. Michael B. Jordan as
was great.
Killmonger. Holy Jesus.
He was great.
What a performance out of him. And like, again, the memes, he's like, is this your king? Like that whole part where he's doing, is this your king? Like that became an instant thing on the internet to, some team that's supposed to win shows up and then they don't win. And then it's like, oh, is this your king? Is this your team? Like, this is how it's supposed to be? Like, okay. But like, that's one where it sticks out. And like, the Wakanda Forever thing just really stuck out in popular culture as well. And, I mean, listen,
sure.
Chadwick Boseman, I can't believe they're going to recast. I mean, they kind of have to. But like, I can't believe they're just not going to just let it be. Just be like, okay, nobody's going to do it as good as Boseman did, and like, just leave it alone. Just you hate to cut out any characters because like, you don't want to do that in comic stories, but like, man, how you gonna find somebody better than him to do that? Like that's really tough.
Yeah,
It's really
sure.
tough. So
I thought about that recently. Yeah.
I mean, it's super sad. It's super sad what happened, but I just don't know how you can try to recast that. Like they're gonna do it, but I don't know, man. And I think for my other one, this is tricky, just because there's a few contenders for me, and I'm torn between a couple of them, but I don't know. For me, that first Iron Man really sets the tone. Like,
Okay.
I think that was the first movie out of the bunch, and the way that to me, it still stands out. Robert Downey Jr. was awesome, and he's basically a rock star, Tony Stark, and the whole way Favreau directed that it was awesome, and like the whole way it plays out, everything about it is just like a super super good movie, and it sets the table for everything. Now, I don't know if this is just like being like an OG favoritist or whatever, just being like, well, whatever. Of course, he likes the older movie, but the older movie's like what, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe. Like, it's not that old, but
it's like 2012. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 10 years. They cranked out 27 movies in 10 years. My God.
Crazy.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with the first Iron Man, because to me it still stands up. And it's just so well done. It's such a well done movie. And and I hope I'm not dissuading you from your next pick, but Iron Man 2 stunk. Like Iron Man 2 stunk out loud.
With Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, and it made Iron Man, the original Iron Man, stand out way better. You're like, wow, well, they better not continue down this road, because if they keep making movies like Iron Man 2, this ain't gonna last. But
yeah,
but the first one's so good. It's just so good.
I wanted to say about Black Panther, and more specifically Chadwick Boseman. I didn't get the hype about him at first, like, because I had only I didn't see the Black Panther movie, and I had only seen him in with the Avengers in smaller parts, and I'm like, all right, all right. And then I watched Black Panther, and I'm like, all right, I get it, man.
Yeah, he's
phenomenal, and it sucks, and it's a big loss, and it's gonna be very difficult to replace. I really enjoyed that movie.
He played Chadwick Boseman played a hell of a Jackie Robinson too.
I can't remember the name of the group, because again, I just watched 27 of these, and I'm getting old and stupid, and I don't retain memories that well. But that the guy he defeated, who ultimately kind of saved him. Oh God, I can't remember. It was a really good redemption story though, with God, I can't think of the group, the guy he beat, but then he's the one because they thought he was dead, but he wasn't dead, and they saved him.
Yep.
Kept him frozen anyway. I thought that movie was I thought it was phenomenal. All right, so I got two more here, my last two. I will say this, okay? Now I'm getting into areas where Thor Ragnarok was the best Thor, okay? No question about it for me. But I like the first Thor. Not as much, but I like it enough to draft it here with my 4th round pick. This is one of 2 movies that got me really into this series. I knew nothing about Thor really before watching this. And I just think Chris Hemsworth is so good, man. He's so good. Plus, I like Natalie Portman a lot too, man. I just think Natalie Portman's hot, man. I like, so
fair.
I like her a lot too. So, and again, not no real deep explanation, but so I'm gonna go Thor, and then for my last pick.
Wait. What? I mean, your last pick? That was your last pick.
Oh, that was my last pick.
What are you talking about, man?
Son of a bitch! Can I have 6?
No, you can't have a 6th.
God damn it!
No, you don't get 6 picks. I know it's your birthday. You're not getting no
birthday pick.
No.
No. Sorry. All right.
I got to be the Grinch for your birthday, man.
All right, you could be the Grinch, but it was a toss up between the 2 of them. The one I'm not going to take. Then the other one is obviously going to be an honorable mention. I like Captain America: The First Avenger.
Okay.
Which, by the way, when I watched these, I watched them not in order that they were released. I saw a list. I did them chronologically. That's the way, and this was the very first one chronologically, at least anyway. I don't know about how it would go in terms of release. It was a really good story. It really, I kind of like the ones where it's just not all in your face. And I'm learning about like the extraterrestrial stuff and the multi-universes and stuff. But this one was just it felt like a regular movie to me, and then it kind of went from there. Well, I can't pick it though. That's freaking bullshit.
What do you mean bullshit? You want to take 6 movies.
Let me ask you quickly. I feel like when I made the pick, you answered this question, but is there one or two of these? Obviously, you didn't take them or whatever that you feel like they weren't that good. Like they got a lot of hype, but that you just personally didn't enjoy them that much. Or they just all that good.
I don't know. Well, the ones that I don't know, Civil War, Captain America: Civil War, I did not like. And
yeah, I'm not a big fan of that either.
I think a big part of that is due to like really loving how the comic story was, and hoping like that might be my fault on why I don't think it's that good. But the way the comic story is made me really want that story to be the one out front. Like that was the one where I was like, oh man, if they can recreate that story, that would be amazing. But instead, the twist with Bucky, killing Tony Stark's dad and all that, I'm just like, come on. Like,
yeah.
Creating like a conflict between Cap and Iron Man. I'm like, geez, what are we doing here? That's like, that's like having like Batman versus Superman, except Superman's the one that killed the Waynes, like that's like what are you doing, man? Like that's crazy. Or Batman kills the Kents. Like Jonathan Kent dies because Bruce Wayne like dropped a car on him or something. Like that's, like that to me is just, I don't know, that really sours it for me. And I was just kind of like, man, and like, the Avenger movies to follow that were built on, obviously you're building off that storyline. I'm just like, man, like, okay. It's like, oh, they got to put their differences aside to fight the bigger evil. And it's like, yeah, I know. Like, I know.
For me,
I get it.
for me, just because I liked it so much, the first one, and in fact, it's in my draft. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was kind of a letdown. I didn't like Kurt Russell and the whole planet stuff, and that just didn't do a lot for me.
I will say though, Michael Rooker being involved with the Guardians of the Galaxy was awesome. Michael Rooker rules. Like put him in anything, and I'm just like, all right, cool. We got an awesome, at least one awesome character involved here.
I agree. And then the other thing too is, I've done these, so I watched them and then I power ranked them and I would write up a little review for Facebook and Twitter, but Facebook was a little more detailed. The one thing I think I was wrong about in hindsight, but at the time I just wasn't feeling it. And because they were also earlier movies, is Iron Man, all of them. I think I started, except for 2. I agree with you. I think 2 was not good. And when I looked at my rankings when I was done, I was like, hold on, Iron Man 1 is way too low. It should be much higher. And I also, Iron Man 2 should be much lower because that was one of the worst movies of all. I would say the worst movies was Iron Man 2, The Externals, which I hated that movie.
They should be called The Externals. They should cast them right the hell out of the MCU. Just like
I did not like The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton Jr., although I like Ed Norton Jr., it just didn't feel like a good fit for me. And I know the new one's coming out, but I did not like the first Doctor Strange. It just, again, I know a lot of people were higher on that than I am. Anyway, let's review these. So Joe went with Thor Ragnarok, The Avengers Infinity War, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Black Panther, and Iron Man. I went with The Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, The Avengers Age of Ultron, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Thor. This is going to be, I would anticipate this being competitive. What do you think?
I hope so. I mean, I think Age of Ultron is going to give you problems. I think that one's going to genuinely give you problems. I think me picking Iron Man might be one where it's just like, oh man, you could have picked this, you could have picked that, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, I know. Like, there's 20 other movies I could have picked. I'm sorry. Like, sorry, I didn't pick the one that you thought should be there. Like, I don't know if I was going to do a do-over, maybe I take the first Avengers movie, or maybe I take Captain Marvel. Like those were competitors, but I don't know. Iron Man's the one that set the table for everybody, and it's still really good. So shut up, everybody.
I feel like I have no idea. I don't know the MCU universe, the fans. I don't know them that well. I don't know what's going to resonate. Again, I'm kind of new to this, but this was fun. And I'll tell you this, I can't wait to see how it plays out. I mean, I'm always interested in seeing how our drafts play out, but this one specifically, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, everyone give Joe a follow. And by the way, tweet at us ideas. Like Joe said, I agree 100%. If you got some pop culture related ideas that you would like to see us draft, tweet at myself at Pat Moran Tweets or tweet at Joe Yerdon, and we will we'll do it, man. As long as it's not something that's too stupid. Yeah. You know, I will call out stupid ones anyway, but make sure you check out Mainstay Podcast with Joe Yerdon and Lance Lazowski every Monday. I'll be looking for that Jeff Skinner centric episode as well. But thanks as always for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun. And like I mean it. I look forward to seeing how this one plays out. Thanks as always, man. You know I love having you on.
Absolutely. No, and I love being here. It's fun, and I'm glad to take part in all of this.